Hey guys, welcome to this channel. Today we're going to talk about smart families and what is a smart family. I'm going to show you an example of a pile with structural rebar. I'm going to make actually a series of videos related to that topic, and this one is some sort of an overview of the family and just the demonstration of what it can do. And yeah, without further ado, let's get on with this. So here I've prepared the presentation for you, and I'm going to walk you through everything that we're going to do. So first of all, I'm going to show you the family itself, right? So here I have a pile. As you can see, the family of this is a structural rebar. So that is the pile, and here we have a structural rebar. As you can see, it's a family. It's not a project. So here the first thing that it's going to be a custom pile with rebar in a family. So when you load this to the project, everything will be with rebar, right? And everything will be calculated in a schedule. So without modeling this in a project itself, right? So here, what is the unique about it? So here, if we go through the stages of the family, you can see that this family has a structural rebar category, right? And if you're familiar with Revit, Revit cannot do this. So if I go to family, new, it's not a new family, new family, here I can find that I have the option to create like a rebar shape. So where's that? Here I have the rebar shape, and the way that works is you're just creating the shape, and then you're using that in a project. You cannot nest this to some families like piles, like structural foundations, and so on. So that is the trick that I'm going to show you. So I'm just going to walk you through all of the families. So these are like some sort of stages of the family. I want to make this interactive in terms of I'm going to go back to the slide and just talk about what is there. So first of all, let's talk about what is a smart family, right? Smart family is, for me, it's when everything is working together, and when user need to when you make your family user friendly, right? What do I mean by that? If I go to the level, for example, to the first to the reference level. So for example, as you can see, this family is a nested family, right? So this one is a nested family, and this one, that one is the pile that we've created here. As you can see, I can go to added extrusion, and this one I can go to added family, right? I'm sorry that everything is in Ukrainian here because I've made this for a good friend of mine, but I'm gonna translate everything for you. So for what is a smart family? So for example, here I have a radius of the pile, and when I change the pile radius, for example, to 800, and I go with apply, as you can see, everything will adapt. So for example, these rebars will adapt to stay exactly here, and this spiral rebar will stay at some length, and that length is calculated, right? So for example, here we have the rebar cover. So if I set to 0, again, everything will go up to this part. I can go to 3D so you can see this. As you can see, this spiral rebar, right, that it goes, now it's right at the edge of the pile. And now if I go and I would change this, for example, for 50, right, everything will move with this. This spiral rebar will move with this, and these longitudinal rebars will move with them. And the same goes, for example, if I go to the front, right? So I knew what parameters users want to fill in, right? And everything should be, and other parameters should be calculated. So for example, if I have something like so let me show you, for example, the rebar cover from top and bottom, right? So for example, if I go with the from bottom, so that is the rebar cover from bottom, and I go, for example, with 800, right? Everything will adapt for this, right? So here now you will have a rebar cover at 800. The same goes for this part, right? And for example, here we have the quantity of spirals. So if I go with 6, everything will adapt for this. So the pile depth is calculated, because for the user, what was important? The important was the quantity of the spirals, right? So understanding what user needs, right? So the needs of user is vitally important. And also you can change, as you can see here, that that step, like I would name this as a step, like 700, for example, right? So this part can change how that goes, right? So if you look at 3D, so basically, and as you can see, even Revit cannot actually make this spiral sometimes, as you can see. So the point is, everything should be interactive and linked and connected together, right? So now, so I hope that I answered the question, like what is a smart family? The next one will be how to organize your parameters. So for example, here, everything that is calculated by the formula should be under other, and everything that that is for the user, right? So he can go and change something, right? Should be under dimension. And this one I can also show you in the Rebar family itself. I have the first one that I've done, and actually it's not like the finished product, right? So I'm gonna go to this one because I've had two families, one in English, one in Ukrainian, but here one in Ukrainian, and I actually make it up to the very end. So what I'm going to show you. So under graphics, I put this so people can understand what I did, right? So for example, here under dimensions, all of the parameters that user can change. For example, the radius for that pile, I've prepared that beforehand, right? So people can, so I can connect parameters. So for example, if I go to 170, 1700, for example, as you can see, everything moves with this. I can change the rebars, like 8, for example, the numbers of these rebars, right? So I can change it actually. Yeah, so I can also change the spirals, like the spirals. I can change, like a lot of stuff can be changed there, right? So I'm just gonna show, I just want to show you that how everything works, and just how this nesting works. So for example, here you'll see a lot of trigonometry, and in next tutorials I'm going to be showing you everything from scratch, and how I actually from where I take this information, right? In terms of how I understood how to calculate, for example, the length of the spiral, because we needed that for schedules, right? So here under general I put the calculation of the spiral. So the organization of the project of the parameters is also a paramount thing, right? So it's also a really important stage of the project. So let's go to the next one. So why formulas are so important? As you can see, formulas is an integral part of a smart family, because if you want your family to be smart, you need to include a lot of formulas, so people, for example, I changed a good example. Let's go even to the, let's do that here. So for example, I changed the radius of this, right? Let's imagine that I would only connect this spiral to the radius. So for example, when I change the radius to something like this, as you can see, all of these longitudinal rebars, they go with this, right? They adapt. If I wouldn't do this, right, I would need to go now to the one more parameter and just change it, right? So that would need it to adapt and to stay exactly where it needs. So this is what our formulas for, right? Yeah, and here, this is the part that I've already talked, right? How to make your families interactive. For example, when you change the radius of the pile, I mean that here that if I change the radius of the pile, everything changes. This is the part that I've shown you right at the very beginning. Also, we'll talk about how to understand when to use shared parameters. For example, when you need to schedule things, how to use them properly, how to give them proper names, descriptive names, and how to work with them. The next thing is to how to understand stages of family, so-called nesting. So here I've prepared one more slide, like stages of family. So here is the part where we're just creating one the first stage when we create just rebars, right? So here we have this spiral rebar, and here we have a longitudinal rebar. And the next stage was to nest two of those in this family, right? So let me show you that in Revit. So here I have this family, and if I tab and select, I can go to the rebar. But I think in our case, we're gonna make some modifications to that family, because now I've noticed a lot of like better options how we can approach this method of creating this family, right? So we're gonna do this even better. So this is the first stage, that is the second stage, but also we have this and as you can see, everything is set to structural rebar. That is the unique feature actually that you will see. So yeah, so these are the stages. So first one is the creation of the structural rebar. The second one is to connect them and to create like arrays, a lot of formulas so they stay correctly, they stay exactly where they need to. And the last stage, like the final stage, is to nest everything to the pile to make it work correctly. So also we're going to talk about how to master arrays. Not only this array, because it's not that one of a difficult array, but I'm also going to show you how you can learn arrays based on what Revit has. For example, like curtain walls. So it's just going to be like a video that will help you understand how you can learn arrays. Then we're going to set how to learn about how to set block parameters, right? This happens a lot. For example, in my scenario, I'm going to show you the family that I've generated here. This one. So the case was like that. So when people can only set 3 numbers for the quantity of the longitudinal rebars, 6, 8, and 10. So when the user is typing something like, for example, even here 14, he won't see the 14. But for example, if I go with 6, this is going to be like 6. But if I go with 7, right, he cannot go with 7, and I'm showing them that, right? So as you can see, family is some sort of breaking. Here I haven't allowed, here I only make sure that that one works. Like I have like a warning for people, and I only allow this for the range from 6 to 10. As you can see, if I go with 14, right, it works and it doesn't show an array. We will do that will do that, right? So what I want to show you that how you can actually show people that you made a mistake. It's not working that way. You know, you told me that it cannot be 7, for example. So it cannot have these odd numbers. So as you can see, I'm showing people cannot use odd numbers, right? So this one is like some sort of warning and prompts people. This one like prompts people that they made a mistake and they need to change something. Also, I'm going to show you how to nest families properly. It's really important to know all of the techniques and all of the caveats, right? And like how to create columns, beams, also like piles, like structural rebars with rebar in one family, right? So maybe you have a typical, this is usually done for typical like rebars, right? So for example, when you have a typical rebar for the beam, you can have a family, right, already for everything. For example, beam with rebar, that will work, and that can help you a lot in terms of like streamlining your workflow. Again, just showed you that we can actually how to show user that he made a mistake. That's just the thing that we already talked about. How to create a structural rebar family, right? So something unique, right? How you can create a family that will have this category, structural rebar, because you cannot do this with what Revit has on offer. And the last is how to create spirals and calculate their length, right? So it's also an important part. How to understand. Of course I'm gonna show you how to type all of these formulas. What I would like to show you is how you can find this information, so you can actually deal with a lot of scenarios that may be on your way. So yeah, and here this is the stages of the family, and this is the videos that I'm planning to make. So the first one, that one is an overview of the family. The second one will be how to create a family with structural rebar category, right? Not rebar shape. The third one will be how to create spiral and longitudinal rebars and add all the necessary parameters and visibility settings and plus shared parameters. There's going to be actually a lot more. I'm just kind of showing you the main ones. Also, how to nest families and create smart connections between them, and how to nest to the pile. Like column family and smart connection is the key here. It's really important to understand this, that about smart connections, how you can nest parameters so your families are interactive. Also, you'll learn a lot about like trigonometry and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's going to be very useful. So yeah, there we go. I hope that was a useful tutorial in learning a little bit more about how smart families can be and how to kind of work around some of the limitations that Revit has or the missing features like with Rebar. Thank you guys for watching this video up to the very end. If you're not yet subscribed to this channel, hit the red button down below, and I will see you very soon in my next video.